right, what is up, fantasy fans, Shakespeare fans, thespians, contemporary fiction fans? As always, I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay, narrator of The Gallant by Janie Wirtz, and today I'm going to talk about one of my new favorite books of the year, my second favorite book of the year as things sit currently, but we'll see if the recency bias kind of dissipates. Amazing book. It's not fantasy, it's contemporary fiction, and it completely blew my socks off. And the book I am talking about is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Actors are by nature volatile, alchemic creatures composed of incendiary elements. Emotion and ego and envy. Heat them up, stir them together, and sometimes you get gold, sometimes disaster. Per aspera ad astra. I'd heard a variety of translations, but the one I liked best was Through the Thorns to the Stars. But that is how a tragedy like ours or King Lear breaks your heart, by making you believe that the ending might still be happy until the very last minute. The thing about Shakespeare is, he's so eloquent. He speaks the unspeakable. He turns grief and triumph and rapture and rage into words, into something we can understand. He renders the whole mystery of humanity comprehensible. Which of us could say we were more sinned against than sinning? We were so easily manipulated. Confusion made a masterpiece of us. Do you blame Shakespeare for any of it? The question is so unlikely, so nonsensical, coming from such a sensible man that I can't suppress a smile. I blame him for all of it. For us, everything was a performance. A small, private smile catches me off guard and I glance down, hoping he won't see it. Everything poetic. The future is wide and wild and full of promise, but it is precarious too. Seize on every opportunity that comes your way and cling to it, lest it be washed out to sea. We're only ever playing 50% of a character. The rest is us, and we're afraid to show people who we really are. We're afraid of looking foolish if we reveal the full force of our emotions. Where do I even begin? So I'm going to start with the spoiler-free section. So I'm going to talk about some of the greater plot points, what the story's about, why you should check it out, and then I'll give a spoiler warning, and then I'm going to go into some of the details of the plot. But so what is this book about? So this book follows the character of Oliver, who has been in prison for 10 years for a crime that we as the audience are not privy to, but we know the cop who arrested him has frequently visited him and has always kind of been skeptical of the sentence Oliver has gotten and of the things that transpired to land Oliver in this cell, you know? So he tells Oliver in the prologue that he is retiring. He's going into private security, and he would like, when Oliver gets out, because Oliver is about to get out after 10 years for this crime, he asks if Oliver would tell him the true story. So that is the framing narrative we have. Although I say framing narrative, it does not feel as though the first-person narration we are getting from Oliver is the actual dialogue of him recounting the story, even though there are flashes of modern day where, you know, they're talking about the narrative that Oliver is sharing with this former police officer. It doesn't feel as though all of the narrative that is being conveyed to the audience is the dialogue between these two men or Oliver communicating his story to him. At least to me, it did not feel that way. Though there is that framing narrative. In the time in which the story takes place, which is 10 years prior to this, before Oliver serves his sentence, we follow the fourth year students at Delacour Art School, where there are many different areas of study at Delacour, but we mainly follow the drama students. In fact, we only follow the drama students, and they put on Shakespeare plays every single year. Each year does different stuff. Year one mainly works backstage. Year 3 does comedies. Year 4 does the tragedies. Year 2 is like understudies for year 3. Same thing, year 3, understudies for year 4. And we follow our fourth years, and it is a very rigorous program. Like, it's known that with each year, you're going to lose some students because they're so selective and people are constantly being cut. But by the time you're in fourth year, that's your set group. So we have these 7 characters that have survived the storm of not making it through the program. Like, they're in their final year, and they're in the tragedy year, and they are, at the onset of the story, they are auditioning for Caesar. for the play of Julius Caesar. And this gets into one of my only gripes about this book, and it's not even a gripe I view negatively. Some people may take issue with it. I personally thought it added to the tragedy of it, but if you're at all familiar with Shakespeare and you know the plays that they're referencing, you can tell based on who plays what part and what happens in these plays that they're acting out. You can kind of tell what's going to happen within the main narrative of the novel. So there is a lot of, it's not subtle foreshadowing. The foreshadowing is very, very transparent, and it makes the book predictable. But that predictability never takes away from the tragedy of it. It never takes away from the humanity of it. In fact, it's heartbreaking as you witness these characters making their inexorable way towards tragedy, towards their own downfalls. And it's so brilliant in the way it foreshadows events, even though it's very on the nose. That sounds like it would be a negative, and in most cases it would be, but for this novel, it really, really works. And so many of these characters are brilliant. So there are 7 main characters. You have Richard, who is he's always cast in the larger than life roles. Like, this is who would play Henry V. This is who would play King Lear. This is who would ever play the authority type character, the character that embodies the character with the most stage presence, who comes on stage to control the scene. That is Richard. Then you have James, who is the truest thespian of the bunch and is, a real actor's actor. He usually plays the hero of the story. You have Meredith, who is, the most beautiful of them all. She's so beautiful. She's breathtaking. Everyone's eyes is always on Meredith. You have Philippa, who is very human and who understands her fellow castmates seemingly the best out of anyone. You have Rem, who's quiet, but also resilient, who is Richard's cousin. You have Alexander, who's sort of the, pothead of the group, but he's also very intelligent. And you have Oliver, who at first glance may seem the least interesting of the bunch, the audience stand-in, if you will. And I don't know, I would compare him a lot to Pericles. He feels very passive in his own story until he makes a decision to where he cannot be seen as a passive character within the narrative. I think Oliver is the most nuanced character of the bunch, though I would say all of them are nuanced, but specifically Richard, James, Meredith, and Oliver are my faves. I do like Philippa as well, but those 4 really, to me, commanded the audience's attention on every single page. For me, I usually don't like main characters. Usually the viewpoint character is not my favorite character, unless we're talking like Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio or anything by Robin Hobb where Fitz is the narrator. But I really loved Oliver's character. I love the nuances of Oliver. I think he is an enthralling and magnetic character, and he's so understated at times because in his own mind, he's the guy from the group that's normal. But that's not how others see him. I love this line that Meredith tells him where it's like, people say that you're kind, that you're giving, but what they really mean is you're good. And of all of them, all of them are great, but Oliver's the only one of them that you can really take a look at and say, you're good, Oliver. You're so good. Like, you're a good person. And he's just got such a big heart, which is honestly to his detriment at times, but he is just such an easy character to empathize with, and I really enjoyed his journey. He's not a perfect character by any means. He's not the most virtuous, ethical person ever, but you do know that he doesn't go into anything with ill intentions and that he has a lot of love for his family, because that's what these 4th years are to him. They're his family. And yeah, this is a beautifully told story. It ends in tragedy, and I can't really speak more on it without getting into spoilers. So if you have not read it, I highly recommend go to your local bookstore, get a copy, listen to the brilliant audiobook. I'm blanking on the name of the narrator, but I'll put it down there on the screen. Beautiful audiobook, perfect performances for all 7 of our 4th years. And with no further ado, we're going to get into spoilers. So as I said, you can kind of tell, like, okay, Julius Caesar, they cast James as Brutus. So from the second that happened, I'm like, James kills Richard. I knew it, like, within the first act of the story. I'm like, okay, so James kills Richard. Even knowing that, it's still made for a very enthralling read, because Oliver is not privy to the foreshadowing that we are privy to as the reader. And And when you get that reveal that it was James, it's so heartbreaking for Oliver to hear this and then hearing how it happened. And even though I knew reading through the book that it was James, it did recontextualize how Oliver would view a lot of these different scenes within the narrative. I love the relationship between Meredith and Oliver. Even though this story is really a love story between James and Oliver, Meredith being the third member of the love triangle, it never made Meredith feel secondary. Her love for Oliver was real. Her entanglement with James was real. Her abuse at the hands of Richard was real. She was a character in her own right and not just a vessel for our other characters in Oliver and James. Though the crux of this novel does hinge upon the tumultuous and often vitriolic and often romanticized relationship between Oliver and James. And, I want to touch up on this on a separate video. I'd love to do a video essay on the character of Oliver or potentially the relationship between Oliver and James. But, Oliver's love for James does sway. It doesn't even sway into it, boldly strides into the area of idolizing, of idolatry. And this is much to Oliver and James's detriment. Oliver is incapable of not seeing James on that pedestal. And, if you've ever been young and in love, as we all have been, you've experienced what it's like to put someone on that pedestal, or perhaps for yourself to be on that pedestal and for yourself to not really understand why you're put on this pedestal for this other person. But people can't even explain why they do that because it's just what the heart does. But yeah, Oliver doesn't even realize it, but you can see it within the first act of the story. He is very much in love with James, and it to the point of idolizing him. And as we find out in the final act of the story, he throws his life away for James, and all for naught, because James, knowing that Oliver did this for him and reciprocating the same feelings that Oliver felt for him, he chooses to end his own life. And that is why, to me, this is more reminiscent of Romeo and Juliet, of Troilus and Cressida, of Antony and Cleopatra than it is more reminiscent of these romantic tragedies than it is of the more political tragedies, of the more dubious tragedies like Othello, Macbeth, Hamlet. Because yes, it is nefarious what happens to Richard, and it's titillating to see like what led to this and how did Oliver go to jail, and like what resulted in him having this prison sentence, and who the real killer is. That was the main mystery of the novel. But by the time the curtain closes, you're more concerned with this love that never got to be between James and Oliver. And some people are going to look at this and be like, Oliver's an idiot for taking the fall for James. And I had that thought as well. I think it's simplifying things a little bit too much, because they had a connection that, you wouldn't understand unless you were one of them. And it's evidenced by, like, if you want to say it as like James deserved to go to jail and Oliver made a mistake by, throwing his life away for James. Well, James threw his existence away for the guilt he felt at Oliver taking the fall for him. I don't think that's just the guilt of killing Richard. I think it's the guilt of knowing the man he loved was serving his time, and he had no idea that Oliver would be released so early. And, it did feel like Romeo and Juliet to me. It did feel like Antony and Cleopatra. It did feel like this is a love that burned so hot and so bright that it burned everything to ash. And a beautiful story. ML Rio deserves a round of applause. This story is magnificent. It's one I'm going to come back to. It is without a doubt one of my favorite contemporary reads that I've read within the past 2-3 years. I'm struggling to think of other contemporary reads that impressed me. I love Station 11. I would put this over Station 11. I loved Seven Moons of Mali Almeida. I would put this on par with Seven Moons of Mali Almeida for my own enjoyment. Though I will say, if you're not a Shakespeare enthusiast, this may not have the same effect. You may be sitting at more of like a 3 or a 4 star. But if you love Shakespeare and you love the tragedy, I think it is going to be an easy 5 out of 5 stars. Just know that it is melodramatic. There is a lot of adolescent angst. There is a love triangle, a true love triangle, to where it's not just like one person loving 2 people. It's one person loving 2 people, and those 2 people may love these 2 people. So it's a huge mess. And it's a whole lot of tropes that in any other narrative would kind of throw me off. But because this narrative is able to tie those tropes in so well with these characters that are not caricatures, all of them feel so incredibly real. Every single member of the 4th year drama group feels so incredibly human while also being larger than life. Because of that, it just made for a masterpiece of a story, at least for my own personal taste. This will go down as one of Zachary Shea's favorite standalone novels. I love If We Were Villains. And let me know down in the comment section below if you've read If We Were Villains, if there's other books like If We Were Villains that you think I would enjoy. I plan to check out The Secret History by Donna Tartt here in the next couple weeks. I hear that these are similar. I think A Secret History by Donna Tartt was the predecessor, the progenitor of this sort of dark academia sort of narrative. In fact, the narratives sound eerily similar, but this is more Shakespearean. Let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, stay safe, guys. Peace.